I'm Shafer. I live just outside of Sebastopol, California. I'm often cited as the pioneer of the tiny house movement. Built my first tiny house on wheels back in 1999 and moved in shortly thereafter. And I've been living small ever since, in one degree or another. Well, this is my house, or more specifically, this is the trailer that my house is sitting on right now. It's just sitting on it temporarily. I like to design all my houses now so they can be put on trailers and fastened to them permanently, or just set on trailers. And this one is just sitting on this trailer, but I'm living in it at the same time. So I have 16-foot long house, if you include this 2-foot porch, 14 without. A integral loft, which means the loft hangs over the porch. Lots of windows. It's cedar on the outside and mostly pine and fir on the inside. Nice steep roof pitch, so if I ever decide to move into the snow, I can do that. Metal roofing, and you know, your standard tiny house. Extra tiny. I should say it's 120 square feet, or 119.9 anyway, just to keep it under the radar. One of the reasons I do the tiny house thing, or began doing it, because I like to think of myself as an addict of meaning. So, you know, my house has to have meaning. Everything in it has to mean something. It has to be either beautiful or functional. It actually has to be both. You know, really wanted to go with Craftsman Style for this series of houses I've designed. Box bungalows is what I call them. And so everything's really fortified with this chunky look, like big old 4x6s for purlins on the front. Chunky stuff where you don't really need it except for a sense of fortification. So it feels kind of like a fortress. And the traditional door on a lot of bungalows anyway, or Craftsman Style stuff, is a board and batten door. And oftentimes there's a speakeasy on it. Speakeasy it's also common on speakeasies. I think that's where it got its name from, was you know, they would peek to see if it was the cops coming in to bust a speakeasy during Prohibition, or if it was just somebody coming in to drink. This is my kitchen. And what you see is what you get, except for maybe one part, which is this stove right here, which I have to take off the wall to use. But that's pretty easy. It just hangs on the wall. A fridge goes under the counter to increase the counter space, and a sink. The 3 elements of most any kitchen, but a little smaller. I guess lots of storage space is important too. Under the sink, over the counter, wherever I can fit it. Speaking of which, there's a tiny closet next to the kitchen, right inside the front door, which is very messy inside and you can't see much of anything, but trust me, there's a closet. All right, on the opposite side of the entryway from the kitchen, I've got the bathroom, which is everything you would have in a bathroom, but smaller. The sink and the tub and the shower are all combined as one thing. So it's a Japanese style tub, and it's got a little step in there so you can get into it easily, but it's very deep, but not very wide, because I don't have much linear lateral space to work with. And there's a toilet in there as well. Okay, so just beyond the entryway, I've got the main living quarters, which, you know, after building my first house, I realized I actually needed a place to socialize. And so that's the puffy chairs. I can also use the desk chair and a bench from the porch if I have more guests than that. The desk is obvious. Here it is. Lots of storage. You know, in a small space, it's good to have more storage per square foot or cubic foot than a large house, because you still have stuff. And beyond that, I've got a little heater, and that's what the little puffy chairs are focused on. So it's like a little altar. I'm always designing my houses in accordance with sacred geometry and whatnot, because that's what I started with in art school, making little shrines with sacred geometry, so there's always an altar or something in there. Beyond that, there's only one thing you cannot see, which is the secret compartment containing secret documents. So I can hang paper in there and more easily check it out. It's not really secret, obviously, now, just between me and... You know, I didn't have to put these bookshelves right here, but I put them right in this potentially wide throughway to narrow it down and throw it off center so it doesn't feel like a hallway racing through the house. It's really important to have a sense of volume somewhere in the house for me. Otherwise, it's just too hallway-like. And by pinching this down with some mass and setting it off center a little bit and then lining up a couple elements in the bigger room with it, it does feel like suddenly, wow, it's cavernous, it's volume, instead of just, you know, that sort of thing. And of course, the last part of the house is the loft, and that is, this is the smallest loft I've ever designed. And it's a bit tight for 2 people. Actually, I don't know this is true. I've been up there with 3 people, but 2 of them were under 4 feet tall. So I don't know how it'd be to sleep with 2 people, but you better be intimate, or be ready to be intimate, because it would be very tight up there. Hi! I think people can recognize the coolness in simple, pared down living, where everything means something in a space or in a life, because, well, we're geared towards that as part of nature. Efficiency. The first green, sustainable thing. I mean, before green and sustainable were words, there was always efficiency. And living without, you know, just living better with less is the way I feel like nature tends to do it. It's only the desire and fear that gets people, at least myself, into wanting to have more and more. I guess the idea behind all of my houses has been to design something that's more efficient than the typical American house. And of course, looking at the space issue, it's pretty easy to see that most houses have more space than people need, at least some of us need. And that's been fun, reducing things down in terms of space, but now also, like, you know, all the other technologies that go into a house, like the insulation. How can you make the wall thin but still well insulated? How can you maximize the window R value and U value? So this has just been more of the same. And the more of it I do, the less I get, apparently, because this one's the smallest yet. So this is my house. It's just 7 feet by 8 feet on the outside, 51 square feet on the inside. It's less than 1 ton, which is very light. It can be towed by virtually any car. You know, it's basically a very efficient bedroom. Just 51 square feet. There's a bed. It pulls out to a full size from this twin size. I call it a day bed because if I lie down, it's a bed. If I sit up, it's a couch. I also have another bed upstairs, or at least room for a bed, a full size up there, or storage. Speaking of storage, lots of storage space. It's important to have that in a small place, because one does have stuff after all. There's a little Japanese style desk that I like to use. I heat the whole place with a candle. that's good for now. It doesn't, it's only December now, so it hasn't gotten that cold, but when it gets colder, I will have to use 2 candles, I'm sure. Okay, so this is the candle holder, glorified candle holder. Heats the whole house, a single candle. When it gets colder, I'll have to use 2 candles in the same candle holder. It's based on rocket stove technology, so by angling the exhaust pipe outward and having an intake for the air that the flame eats, it eats the oxygen, that creates a draft that drives the heat through. In this piece, this extra chunky piece of metal up here, I've got quite a bit of thermal mass, so the heat collects in there. And by the time the exhaust exits the house, there's almost no exhaust there. Almost no heat exits the house either. It's all trapped right here. I like it. It took me a lot of work, but it's only like $40 in materials. So the this white stuff is actually magnesium oxide, MgO. It's totally fireproof up to like 5,041 degrees, so it's fireproof. I used it here because obviously there's fire here. I also used it on the walls because I figured, you know, as long as I'm in fire country, I might as well have a fireproof house. Yeah, smaller houses are much safer overall. I mean, if you're concerned about things like the Wizard of Oz sort of thing with your house flying away in a tornado, that can be totally, I mean, you're safer in a small space if it's tied down. Use tie downs if you're in tornado country. You know, if you're in hurricane country, that might help, but you might want to put some pontoons on it instead, or just tow it away. I recently said this is under $5,000 in materials. That's a safe statement because it is. But I'd say also that it's under $3,000 if I'm not including, for example, the trailer, which is $1,000 of that. In my first house and every house I built for myself after that, I included a kitchen and bath largely to show people, look, normal people can live here because most people need a kitchen and bathroom. But, you know, I just don't use it much, so I figured I'm not going to build a showpiece, my little trophy house, show house. I'm going to build a house that actually meets my needs, because a lot of people are like me. And I figure, you know, because you can just clip a kitchen and bathroom onto the side of this, that's equally efficient. That's the core design. And other little apps you can add, including a wraparound porch. Why not just go for the core and show how efficiently it can be done? If I ever decide to start cooking, I will add the kitchen then. If I ever pee inside again, I will add the bathroom then. Well, this would be a dependent unit, they would say, in code, at least some of it, because it does not have a kitchen or bathroom. So it would be used in conjunction with shared amenities like a kitchen and bathroom. And that's what I'm doing now. I have a kitchen and bathroom available to me just yards away. I don't even use those that much, but it would be nice to have a little cluster of houses like this with a common house where everybody has what they need. That would be so efficient in terms of infrastructure. You know, I've always designed houses with pretty much anyone in mind who's interested in living more efficiently, you know, more affordably, with less extra stuff around, less encumbered by extra space. So that's the primary goal always, but there's also this problem with people who can't afford the typical American house, which is actually me. So conveniently enough, I designed it for me, and in the same process I've designed it for, you know, this would make a great way to house people who just need to get out of the rain, who would rather sleep, you know, in a house than under a tarp. This whole house is telescoping. This is essentially the core we're sitting in here. From this core, which is essentially a bedroom, the house can be expanded with a detachable bathroom or kitchen or bathroom kitchen in the same little add-on to the side of the house. And storage units can be added on too to increase the square footage overall to make it whatever the municipality needs in terms of square footage. And then, you know, it's important to me to be thinking in the bigger picture. So if one were to, for example, just want a core but have that with shared amenities like bathroom and kitchen, you could just have it in a cluster of houses with a common house. If people in that cluster also want their own bathroom and kitchen, you could just have those too. So it's all telescoping from the core all the way out to the cluster of houses, to the village, to the city and the world. It's like taking over the world one tiny house at a time. The end.
Alexis and Christian here with Tiny House Expedition.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And click left or right for more tiny house stories and tours.